I don't know how to make people happy. If they can't be happy with what we're doing here, this is not where they need to be. I'm not running around trying to make people happy. I'm trying to go out here and take care of the people that's taking care of me, the sponsors that believe in me. I'm trying to promote whatever their product is and sell their product, and I'm trying to drive, and I'm trying to bring drivers on that can go to another level. I'm trying to bring people in that want to do this, and you have to really want to do it. Today, if you get ready to hire somebody, first thing they want to know is, how much you going to pay me right now? Well, I don't even know what they can do. Do you? How do you hire people? What do they ask you? I worked for years for nothing, just to learn. But it's not like that today. You know, I grew up on a farm. I worked hard. It was me and my mom. My dad passed away when I was 3.5 years old. I had some good bringing up. I learned to work. That was the only way I was going to get anything. I can remember going to school, a quarter a week allowance. I would be able to either buy milk at lunch for 4 cents, and each day save that penny, and on the 5th day, I could get me a Coca-Cola at the canteen. Good gosh, a quarter a week. A kid comes today and you hand him a quarter, he looks at you like you're crazy. I learned at a young age, 8, 9 years old, to work in the fields in tobacco and corn and beans and things like that. And it was me and my mom living with my grandmother and grandfather. I can remember shelling peas to take to Kroger's or Big Bear or somewhere like that and sell the corn, sell the peas, the green beans, and they would get money. I can remember making enough money the first summer I worked to buy me 3 pair of blue jeans and 4 shirts, some underwear and some t-shirts and socks. That was the greatest feeling that I can ever tell you what it felt like. And I remember back then to be able to help my mama, because she worked in the furniture factories. She worked in the furniture factories. And you know, I can remember her bringing home, good God, a big paycheck, and to bring home for a 2-week work was $86. And you pay for groceries. She bought groceries for us to eat, my grandmother and grandfather, and that was her part of the rent for living in the house. But I helped buy my school clothes. My mother was the greatest lady in my life. She never downed me for racing. I always explained to Mama, if anything ever happened, this is after I got started and she found out I was racing. And she knew I was going to the races and working and wanted to do this. She was my biggest fan.
Now, you've never been shy about growing up, paying more attention to work than you did school. Can you tell me about that?
I left school early in life, 7th, something like that. I was about 14, I lied about my age, and I could go to work at 16. I could get my driver's license. You say, how in the world did you get your driver's license at 14? Well, years ago, There wasn't computers. They couldn't keep up with things, and you could have fake birth certificates. So I went to work. I remember 85 cents an hour printing IBM cards. And at the same time, a little while later, this is in the early 60s, a gentleman, Sam Kennedy, had a 62 Dodge, and you'd see him drive through town on Wednesday night or Friday night or something, and he had one of those Dodges, one of the Ram Charger cars. And so, man, he was the fastest thing there was. And he raced it. And so I talked to him, and he lived about a mile from me through the woods. And so I would go through the woods and go to the races with him. And all of a sudden, I met the Ronnie Soxes, the Buddy Martins, the Harold Dentons, the Billy West, just everybody that was somebody in drag racing here in the South. You go to Piedmont Dragway, that was the greatest thing there was back then, a super stock race at Piedmont. And I got to go and I started meeting people, Don Nicholson, Bill Jenkins, just all kind of people in drag racing that we would read about in magazines that we thought was really, really fast. Well, none of them could beat Ronnie Sox, Harold Denton, Billy West. They paid people at Piedmont Dragway to let Ronnie Sox win sometimes. That's when he was in the Chevrolets. When he got the Comets, that's in '64, it was unbelievable. Sam got a '64 Dodge. I bought his '62 and put it on the highway. I don't have to tell you, I was the baddest hombre around. And so that started my racing. And meanwhile, I met the Petties. And all of a sudden, I went to the West Coast. Sam passed away in '68. And all of a sudden, I went to the West Coast with Sox and Martin, driving the truck, doing clinics. I thought I was going to work on a race car. Greatest thing ever happened to Roy Hill. A couple of years later, he understood. I learned about showmanship. Buddy Martin was the greatest showman there was. He's still one of my very closest friends. When I hit a snag, I pick up the phone and I either call Buddy Martin or I call over to the Petties and talk to Maurice, or I'll snag Richard down, and we talk about things that gives me the right guidance of directions to go.
Story here at the Gator Nationals is the semifinal round of Pro Stock Eliminator. Thus far, we've only been watching nitro-burning supercharged cars. Now we'll take a look at the ultimate factory hot rod, the Pro Stock. It'll be Roy Hill matched against Frank Iaconio in this semifinal round. It'll be an 82 Charger here in the near lane, driven by Hill, against Iaconio and his flying Chevrolet, the number 2 qualifier, at a 7.83 second elapsed time. Hill qualified number 8 at a 7.96, and remember, these cars are carbureted, running on gasoline. Some rules changes this year have picked up the pace considerably as we see Frank Iaconio with a big lead right off the starting line. And Frank extends that margin of victory as he crosses the finish line about 3 lengths ahead at a 7.90 second elapsed time.
People say, how did you go drag racing by being affiliated with the Petties? The Petties wouldn't have helped Roy Hill or give him a chance. I started buying intake gaskets and header gaskets and little parts that I needed for my Rotorunner that I had in 1969, 68 from them. Bought parts from Sox and Martin. Bought the car from Sox and Martin, Buddy Martin. How did I end up at Petties? I needed a roll cage put in the car. I took it to Sox and Martin. Went to Petties first, and they didn't have time to do it. So I took it down to Ronnie and Buddy, and I didn't have the money like some of those big high dollar people. Go ahead and do it and get it in line. they'd do it when they had time. About 3-4 months later, I was at Petty's one day, and Maurice asked me how my car was coming along, and I said they hadn't touched it. And he said, well, me and Richard was talking and said, if they hadn't got started, we got time to work on it. So I went and got the car. It was about 1970, 71. I didn't leave over there until 78, and I got this place here built. I bought this house in 75, put the shop up. Good God, I had so much help, but they wouldn't have given me the chance if I was trying to run NASCAR or run round and around racing. I was drag racing. And they took a liking to me, and I paid my bills, and they seen that I had whatever I needed, and I'd always pay them back. When you're around those kind of people, you learn by being there. I can't say they taught me, but I was there and I learned how to talk and how to do business. Same thing with Buddy Martin. I learned from so many people how to go racing, how to set cars up, how to do things. Today and back then, if somebody needed a hand, I would help them. The rest of the racers, the old-time racers, Ronnie Sox, Don Carlton, they needed a hand. Butch Lill, out on the West Coast, they would help someone or give them a chance to figure it out. Help them figure it out. Today, and we'll just focus on pro stock. That's where I raced so many years. I've never seen so many vengeful people.
Now, you were extremely intelligent when it comes to all things race cars, all things showmanship, all things marketing. But what a lot of people didn't know is that you probably didn't read and write all that well. Can you tell me how it was living that charade back in those days? That's very, very serious. I mean, it was
You know, I can laugh about it a little bit today. No, I read very little. I can't spell. I don't do much writing. I could get away with that back in the 50s and 60s, early 70s. It's something I kept hid, but I put myself around good people. I learned business, but today the people that I deal with, big corporations, big companies, I don't hide it. If I don't understand what they're talking about, we have to slow down here. Roy has to understand I don't like flim-flam artists. I won't tolerate a lie. And it's got me through my life to where I am today. I guess the first company that really realized that I didn't know how to read was Lincoln Mercury Ford whenever I signed my contract for them in 1982, 3, something like that. Ernie Beckman gave me a chance with Lincoln Mercury. Ford had several pro stock cars. They had the funny cars with Raymond Beadle, and Kenny Bernstein was the only one that had it with Lincoln Mercury. And so we was at Columbus, Ohio, and he was there, and Gene DeCola, the head of Motorcraft, introduced me to Ernie. And so we sat down and talked, and I got him up inside my truck, and once I get you there, you're trapped. We shut the doors. We work out what it's going to take to do it and do it the right way, he says. So they gave me a chance, and later on, I guess about 5-6 years later, I told him, I said, I don't understand this, I don't know how to read it. Well, he said, you didn't know how to read the first contract I gave you. I said, well, how'd you know that? He said, because you looked over for about 3 minutes and signed it. Well, I had to trust him. You know, I had to trust people. And as you go through life, you find out the people that you can trust and the people that you have to watch out for.
Would it be safe to say you would do whatever it took to race?
I'd do whatever it took to race. Sometimes it was the right thing, sometimes it wasn't. But whatever it took, it's worse than any addiction that you can ever have. It's tough to say what I just said. I'd do whatever it took to go racing. And I can't say I regret a lot, but if I had the chance to do it over, I'd do it a whole lot different than I did the first time.
Did Roy Hill ever feel like maybe one day those cutting the corners would catch up with you, or did you just think you were always invincible?
I guess if I'd back up and take a hard look at it, you ride on that edge and about step off that cliff every once in a while, and sooner or later it's going to get you. At the times as I went through life, I didn't think I could ever quit winning.
Our next semi-matchup, we'll have Roy Hill, our top qualifier, who's already beaten Ricky Smith and Bob Glidden. He'll meet this guy, Tim Neighbors, who at 7.4 and 189 beat number 5 qualifier Bob Olson in the quarters.
Roy, the Giant Killer, has bumped off the 2 top pro stockers in the entire nation to get into the semifinals against Tim Neighbors. Tim, very young with quick reflexes, though. Don't count him out of this in that beautiful new 87 Camaro. They're staging out.
And there you see Roy Hill, far lane. Tim Neighbors giving him all he can handle in the near lane, but I think Roy Hill is out front, and yes.
Look at the ET on this, 7.33 for Roy Hill. The car just continues to go faster and faster.
And in the Pro Stock Finals, just as in the Funny Car Finals, we will have a number 1 qualifier against the number 2, as Roy Hill will take on Jerry Haas. There you see the gentlemen themselves, smiling faces. This should be a great Pro Stock Final. In fact, Jerry Haas built Roy Hill's car. For more on that, let's go down to the runoff area and Brett Kepner.
Jerry, what do you think, buddy?
That's great.
Well, Jerry Haas and Roy Hill standing here. You'd never think a man would be so happy to run Roy Hill in the final round, but a lot of our viewers don't know it. But during the week, Jerry Haas builds race cars. And Jerry, you'll be going into the final round against Roy Hill, one of the toughest men in the sport, but you build his car.
Yeah, I know, but this Roy, he's a tough guy.
Well,
I couldn't. If I had to run somebody, he's just a perfect guy I'd like to race.
Well, you're lucky because that's indeed who you'll be racing. And Roy, a 7.33. Now, Haas shook the tires pretty hard here, and that doesn't seem to be a problem for the Penny's Thunderbird.
Well, we shook them real bad against Glidden right then, and Bill and Mike and Jim pulled the clutch out of it, and they're just doing a heck of a job with the car. If I can just drive it, maybe we can beat Jerry, but I don't think he'll mind.
You had some personal issues, and you had to step away from racing for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You were right on the pinnacle of the one place you wanted to be, a world championship in pro stock. How emotionally devastating was that?
You know, the first day or two, it killed me. We were at Indianapolis, and they took me in HRA, suspended me from national competition. Didn't take my license, suspended me from national competition. And I called a good friend of mine, Harold Denton. He flew into Indianapolis. We put him in the car and went on. Didn't win the race, but we went on. And I think that was a huge step. I can look back. At the time, I was very hurt. I was mad. Was going to go home. Spent the night. Got up the next morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd already called Harold, got him up there, we got him in the car. But I couldn't wait to get to the track at 4 o'clock in the morning, you understand? That's how much I think of this sport. I couldn't wait to get back out there and go racing. And so the next week we were headed to Rockingham. That's an IHRA track. I was leading the points there. And so I didn't even come home. I went straight to Rockingham. That's 60 miles away, but we were running on Monday, and I had to stay and do some things in Indianapolis. And when I got there, I'll never forget Ted Jones walking up to me and asking me why I was there. I said, I come to race. Well, we sent you a letter. We've suspended you from IHRA. That was the big hurt. I found out there was other racers that were behind it, or another racer. He wanted to win the championship that bad. You can say Roy Hill wasn't very happy. And at that point in my life, when things wasn't right and I felt like was done wrong, I would take care of the situations. That's the way I was brought up. And so I thought about it. I called Columbus, Ohio, talked to Carl KIRK's brother, got Carl's number, called Carl. He had a son, Doug KIRK, that had been running super gas and had just started trying to run pro stock. And I remember him and his brother would come up and ask me questions about how to set their car up and how to run it and whatnot. And his brother had got killed in a trucking accident. And so Doug was trying to race, and I guess we could say we were close. I thought enough of taking Doug and putting him in my car. He got in Friday night, I think it was. I can remember talking to him for about a half hour about how to drive the car. And we'd go out the next day, and we'd probably took 100 horsepower out of the car, and he went out and qualified 8th. Okay? And so the next run, we moved to 4th. I think the next run moved up to 2nd. And I knew what I had, I knew what we could do, and I told him if he could drive like that, we'd win the race the next day.
We've got a pro stock final to deal with here, and it's going to be newly crowned IHRA champion Ricky Smith. You see him there, who came in with a victory over teammate Bob Glidden in the semifinals. He will meet Carl KIRK of Kermit, West Virginia, who overcame Bob Olson in his semi-heat.
Remember, Carl KIRK has been running very strong at this event, but Ricky Smith has won this event 4 years running. Ricky, it seems like, can do nothing wrong at the Rock.
KIRK has what appears to be the faster left lane, and KIRK is out easily at the start. He has about a quick car length advantage. Can he hold on? Yes, and Carl KIRK with a big victory, the first man to knock off the new champ.
Unbelievable as Carl KIRK drives the Ford Thunderbird to a victory, the first ever national event win for Carl KIRK. Look at the time, even quicker, a 7:32, 189 mile an hour. You see both drivers off together now. Carl KIRK still out in front. Ricky Smith pulling hard, doing everything he can, but to no avail.
It's the second time that this machine's been in the final round in 2 straight national events, and I think, as I said, we may have started a bright new career here this weekend.
Oh, there's one more race left, and I'd give anything to see it. No matter who's driving it, I'd like to see it there. It's something, them guys always got, anything I ever got, they can have. They're great.
Congratulations from ESPN.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
From standing on the starting line, watching that car win, and being so happy, and then just realizing that I wasn't in it, and I was leading the points before that, it would have been tough for anybody to have got around me. That was a big, big anvil dropped on me. And I can remember going to the winner's circle. Later on, I had to put all that behind me.
Pro Stock Finals. Here is Billy Ewing from Snellville, Georgia, who has defeated Dean Goforth and Bob Olson on his way to the finals. And his opponent is going to be Carl KIRK, the young man who took over the driving chores for Roy Hill earlier in the season and has won 2 straight.
Remember, Carl KIRK has been cutting those quick reaction times.
And he has the whole shot as he beats Billy Ewing and registered his 3rd consecutive IHRA title. Unbelievable.
Another 730, Bob. Carl KIRK, a 734, 192.71 mile per hour. Look at the reaction time. Carl KIRK does it again, a 07. And that's really the entire story. Although Billy Ewing slows to a 745, Carl KIRK first off the line. The car continues to pull, making the gap larger and larger as he wins easily over Billy Ewing.
And what a contestant he is going to be in next year's competition.
But I'll tell you guys, 1988 is certainly shaping up to be a battle as well. We saw a lot of drivers, including Doug KIRK in Pro Stock, who looks like he's going to be one of the biggest domineering drivers we'll ever see in Pro Stock Eliminator.
You know, something that was so negative, I didn't know what I was going to do. It's like walking out this door right now, and the leaves on the trees have started falling off. And all of a sudden you can see another building over here. And if you move those trees completely out of the way and move that mountain out of the way, there's a city over there. And I guess you have to say you can't see the trees for the leaves on the limbs, but they change. We have seasons. And so taking time, thinking, and what am I going to do? And I said, you know, if I could train Doug KIRK, that know nothing about driving a Pro Stock car to amount to anything, to be a winner, I could help a lot of people.
Hack him up, push the car back or something. Sitting there doing that on the starting line. Bobby, I don't know what is wrong with your mind. You're sitting there doing this and that, leaving the starting line, locking it up, locking it up.
There were a lot of people driving NHRA cars and IHRA cars that were out of control. When they go up in the water box and you're standing there looking at them as a racer, and you see their eyes go that big when they drop the clutch in the water box, you're scared to death of what are they going to do on the starting line. Bob Glidden, Roy Hill, Ricky Smith, you can name a lot of drivers. Warren Johnson. They seen things like this, and we all let them leave first to see which way they were going to go. You understand? And so I started the Roy Hill Drag Race School with my cars that I had left. All of a sudden, the Gliddens, the Warren Johnsons would pull up beside somebody that had been to my school, and they wasn't worried about running them because they know if they made a mistake, they'd back off. I teach people to be like a computer, perfect. You turn a computer on, it runs through a brain, does the same thing every time. And so from running and starting Pro Stock schools, we went on and we did a bracket school, super gas school. And then we did a dragster school. We did a crew chief school. Then we started an engine school and a chassis school. And so I had some real good years and stayed real busy. In '93, I got a chance to go racing again. I went right back to winning. Brought Mike Bell on, one of the best things I ever did, 1995. There was 10 races. I won 3, he won 3. He won the championship.
One more time. you're going to break this car in two. If you do that out there, I can flip it over. You cannot think. You can't react. We've told you to take your finger off that and come to the steering wheel. You won't do it. You won't do nothing we ask you to do. Can you not react to anything anybody tells you?
My good friend Raymond Beadle used to tell me, if you would work as hard at doing something right and legal as you do trying to do something and cut corners, you'd be a whole lot better off. And finally that sunk in several years ago.
Those races where you needed three hands, Roy Hill, the door was coming off.
Yeah, it was. We got in high gear, and I seen it come open with me, and I grabbed high gear and grabbed the door at the same time, and just luckily the door stayed on.
A lot of people think I'm hard, tough, and it's a one-sided story. I'll do anything to help anybody that does the right thing. I do not tolerate nobody lying to Roy Hill. I don't tolerate a thief or backstabbing. It's been a lot of years, and I've seen a lot of things come and go. I know what it was like to be a young boy and be at Piedmont Dragway and see Ronnie Socks and Buddy Martin, Bill Jenkins, Don Nicholson. I know what it's like for them to be busy. I know what it's like to walk up and watch them adjusting the valves or a carburetor or something, and one of them be an asshole. I know what it's like for one to take a time to look and smile but keep working. Something I've tried to always remember is the smile means a lot to a young man or a girl. I will help you.
You talked about who you would help, the kind of person you would have helped. Looking back today to back then, would you have helped Roy Hill in the 1970s?
Roy Hill had something that he's had his whole life. My family and my word. And that's what I look at about people. Yes, I'd help Roy Hill.